The tragic events surrounding Dooski, the man's funeral, highlight the unrelenting cycle of violence that continues to plague Chicago's South Side. What was intended to be a solemn day of mourning transformed into a calculated ambush with a clear target: FBG Wooski. According to insiders and social media evidence, the plan to attack the funeral was not merely a show of dominance by O Block. It was a deliberate attempt to eliminate Wooski. Known as a prominent and highly active figure in the STL/EBT set, Wooski had a reputation for relentless aggression against rival factions, particularly O Block and Wick City. Allegations suggest Wooski was involved in the deaths of multiple O Block members, making him a high-priority target. Reports indicate that the attack was meticulously planned days in advance. Tweets from O Block affiliates hinted at impending retaliation. E-Dog, a known figure in the group, posted cryptic messages like, "Get back gang, gonna get rid of him," and "I got something for heck." These posts, coupled with a FaceTime call between King Von, E-Dog, and Wooski days before the funeral, suggest the operation was intended as a surprise ambush. Wooski's presence at Dooski's funeral presented a rare opportunity for O Block members to catch him outside his usual fortified environment. According to sources, O Block had been waiting for the right moment to strike, as previous attempts to catch Wooski lacking on his block had failed. The funeral home parking lot was heavy with tension, a volatile mix of grief and quiet anticipation. Members of STL/EBT, Taekwon World, JRO City, and 051 Young Money stood shoulder to shoulder, united in mourning yet divided by invisible lines of allegiance. The air was thick with unspoken dread. Everyone had heard the whispers, the veiled threats, but no one truly believed anyone would dare to violate the sanctity of a funeral. Then it happened. A dark sedan screeched to a halt near the edge of the gathering. The doors flew open almost simultaneously, and out came DQ and Muwop, their weapons glinting menacingly in the afternoon sun. E-Dog lingered in the shadows, positioned strategically to oversee the chaos. Without hesitation, the two gunmen opened fire, their targets clear but their bullets unforgiving. Screams erupted as the crowd scattered in all directions, people diving for cover behind parked cars and dumpsters, some clutching at loved ones in desperation. The staccato sound of gunfire echoed through the neighborhood like a battlefield. The attackers' initial barrage was aimed squarely at Wooski, who had been standing near the entrance, surrounded by members of STL/EBT. As bullets tore through the air, chaos turned into a frenzy of retaliation. Lil Ant and Lil Bobo, both armed and on high alert, immediately returned fire, their shots slicing through the smoke-filled chaos. The funeral scene, once somber and quiet, now resembled a war zone. Glass shattered, tires exploded, and the ground was littered with spent shell casings. Wooski, a seasoned veteran of street conflict, didn't hesitate. Drawing his weapon, he engaged DQ in a harrowing exchange of gunfire. The two squared off in the open, bullets zipping past bystanders as they ducked for cover. Each shot Wooski fired was calculated, but his enemy was relentless. The crowd's cries were drowned out by the relentless gunfire. Mothers screamed for their children, and the elderly clung to walls, praying for the chaos to end. Meanwhile, Lil Ant and Lil Bobo continued trading shots with Muwop, who had taken cover near a car, firing with precision. Amid the mayhem, a single shot rang out louder than the rest, silencing the crowd for a split second. Wooski staggered, his head snapping back as blood sprayed into the air. He crumpled to the ground, his weapon slipping from his grasp. Gasps and shouts of horror erupted as his allies scrambled to shield him. DQ, seeing Wooski fall, seized the moment. He sprinted back to the getaway car, ducking low as bullets chased him down the street. Muwop followed close behind, retreating under heavy fire from STL/EBT members who refused to let their enemies escape unscathed. As the attackers fled, the chaos subsided, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Smoke hung in the air, and the pavement was stained with blood. Wooski lay motionless, surrounded by frantic allies trying to stop the bleeding. Ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, a grim reminder of how quickly violence can shatter lives. In total, 6 people were injured in the assault. Miraculously, all survived, but the emotional and physical scars were undeniable. For Wooski, the gunshot wound would change everything, a haunting reminder of the relentless cycle of violence that defined his life. The attack on Dooski, the man's funeral, wasn't just a violent act. It was a statement, a brutal demonstration of how far the streets were willing to go to settle scores. And even as the injured were rushed to hospitals and the mourners tried to make sense of the carnage, one thing was clear: the war was far from over. The aftermath of the funeral shooting was a scene of controlled chaos. Sirens screamed through the streets as emergency vehicles descended on the blood-stained pavement outside the funeral home. Helicopters roared overhead, casting sweeping searchlights over the neighborhood, while SWAT teams and police units established a perimeter around the area. The sheer scale of the response was a testament to the carnage that had unfolded. Spent shell casings littered the ground, bullet holes riddled cars and buildings, and bystanders were being ushered away in a mix of fear and fury. Miraculously, all 6 individuals injured in the attack, including Wooski, survived, though their wounds varied in severity. Wooski's head injury was the most critical, and paramedics worked urgently to stabilize him before rushing him to the hospital. As he was loaded into the ambulance, the weight of what had just transpired was already setting the stage for what was to come. The streets of Chicago seemed to pulse with an electric tension in the days following the attack. STL/EBT and their allies were quick to retaliate, launching a series of calculated, brazen assaults on O Block. The sound of gunfire echoed nightly, the once bustling blocks reduced to battlegrounds under the cover of darkness. Cars sped through enemy territory, windows rolled down just enough for masked figures to aim and fire, leaving trails of shattered glass and panic in their wake. The get back wasn't just about vengeance, it was about making a statement. STL/EBT needed to show that their losses wouldn't go unanswered, and the ferocity of their strikes was proof. Residents huddled in their homes, too afraid to step outside as the streets turned into arenas of warfare. On the other side of the battle lines, O Block was a fortress. Members patrolled the streets in small, tight-knit groups, scanning for any sign of an ambush. The tension was palpable, every shadow a potential threat, every unknown car a harbinger of violence. Their focus shifted entirely to protecting King Vaughn, who had become the group's most valuable asset. Vaughn's role in O Block was more than just that of a street soldier. He was their leader, their breadwinner, and their unifying force. His music career had brought fame and money to the block, elevating their reputation in both the streets and the industry. But that prominence came with a cost. Vaughn was a marked man. Rumors of a hefty bounty placed on his head by STL/EBT figure FBG Duck only heightened the stakes. O Block's defenses revolved around Vaughn. Members moved with military precision, ensuring his safety during every outing. Surveillance increased, with lookouts posted on corners and rooftops, ready to alert at the first sign of danger. Even Vaughn himself, known for his audacious confidence, reportedly moved with more caution, aware of the growing target on his back. The violence didn't stay contained. Each move by one side was met with a swift and often more brutal counter. The attack on the funeral was no longer just about Wooski or Dooski. It was about dominance, survival, and an unrelenting cycle of retaliation. For every bullet fired, a family mourned, a neighborhood lived in fear, and the cycle deepened. It wasn't just street politics. It was a war with no clear victor in sight, each act of aggression setting the stage for the next. The question wasn't if the violence would continue, but rather where and when the next flashpoint would erupt. This wasn't just the aftermath. It was the beginning of another chapter in an unending saga of bloodshed and vengeance, one that would leave its mark on the city and its people long after the gunfire stopped. That concludes today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're alerted whenever a new video drops. It's completely free and helps out the channel tremendously. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.